We had the 9 count on the S&P 3 days ago, and sometimes you go a little higher and then you turn. And again, maybe the S&P has peaked now. We closed below the upper Bollinger Band. Okay, it's possible it's done. If we get confirmation tomorrow and a follow through, and maybe we get confirmation and no follow through, and we rebound back up and get a lower high or a divergence, we'll see how it unfolds. But you have the 9 count warning of a turn. You have this head and shoulders pattern that we're likely headed down towards this 4,900 area. NASDAQ had the 9 count the day after, yesterday. Quickly, S&P pushed a little higher, NASDAQ got a lower high, so they did have a divergence. That may be it. Watching, do we get a follow through tomorrow and sell off further, a confirmation I should say, and then follow through, or do we rebound? NASDAQ got a huge hit. It can keep going though. NVDA continues to show weakness along with Apple, which they're now starting to turn. But that wasn't supposed to happen. We were told it wasn't going to happen, but yet it is. Peers told us the market was way overbought and we were going to turn. Told you we were going higher on the weekly chart first to complete the divergence in the weekly time frame. It's probably done now. We're just about finished. Told you we could get a topping tail this week. Right now, at the moment, we do have one here with the S&P 500. We got the 9 count last week. I told you if we go a little higher, we could see a topping tail. We'll see how we close out the week. Could see a complete reversal. We'll see if we rebound or not. Possible that the top is now in. Did you hear what I just said? Told you about the 9 count, double sequence count, sell signal here in the weekly time frame week and last week when it formed. Same thing on the NASDAQ. We got the 9 count last week. We went higher. So far, we're getting a topping tail. We'll see how we close on the weekly chart. This is a reversal pattern with our negative divergences in the weekly time frame. Told no, this time it's different. It's not different. We're saying that we keep hearing, oh, AI, there's nothing going to change it down because it's life-changing technology. Hasn't stopped other bear markets from happening with the dot-com bubble and the tech stocks and the dot-com stocks. They all got slaughtered. Again, we had the 9 count yesterday. Oh, gee, what happened today? Oh, we dropped 2.25%. We dropped 500 points on the NASDAQ. Closed below the upper band. Top on the NASDAQ very well could be in now. Keep dropping. Again, you got a little head and shoulders that might try to form right here. And you have the larger one down over here. So we'll be watching to see what happens here. But you've got, if we keep dropping here, again, it maybe we get something like this and get a head and shoulders pattern. So again, the 9 count's playing out, divergence is playing out, what things look like the candlesticks by the end of the week. We'll see if we sell off further with the PPI data tomorrow or if we attempt a recovery. Sometimes you get an up day on one and a down day on the other. We'll see what happens. Both down days, you'll get a confirmation to these bearish candlesticks here on back in S&P, both wide range bars. Please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the information, please support the channel today. Take a moment to do that. I would really appreciate it. Thank you. I've been warning you about the divergence on the Apple daily chart on a lot of indicators. It's now playing. We are down 2.31% today. Big tech sell-off. CPI was buy the rumor, sell the news. It's a sell the news event. Sometimes, again, and I talked about this earlier in the week or the weekend, that sometimes even if you get good news, the market tops on good news. It's topped on the CPI reports before, the inflation reports. I've talked about it. Talked about that earlier in the week. And I told you that even if we get a good report, still create a top, or you could go higher and create a top. I think the NASDAQ has a good shot that it's peaked. I think the S&P still has a shot at a divergence, and they can diverge between the two if we go back up and test the high. Watching what happens with the PPI inflation data tomorrow, but Apple turning down 2.31% for the session. NVDA down 5.5%. I've been warning you about NVIDIA. NASDAQ's making new highs. NVIDIA is not. And again, NVIDIA is likely going to go the way of Bitcoin. Now we had a bear flag. It's evolved into a rising wedge that broke down today, being a lower high. Very similar to what we had over here. We had this big bearish engulfing, went back up, got a lower high, and then we saw the sell-off. And we're seeing the same thing here in all likelihood. Again, I think that NVIDIA is going to drag the whole market down with it, and I think it's going to head back towards the 200 period moving average here and horizontal support. And again, you got a good shot at the head and shoulders on NVIDIA and on the S&P and the NASDAQ as well. Again, today's cool CPI now makes it very likely that the Fed is going to go ahead, cut in September. We've already seen other central bankers across the world already doing that. The Fed is likely going to do it next, and I think that that is going to be in September. I think that, the Fed downsized the amount of cuts, which I predicted would happen. They downsized it to 1. I said it was going to go to 1 or none, but I still predict that we're going to get 2 cuts for the year. The first one will be in September. Before the cut happens, we're going to have the stock market peak, all likelihood, and put in a topping process. The head and shoulders possibility here for NVDA and the stock market are very, very high. I think we'll get that rate cut in September. But again, the herd believes it's a bullish thing. It's a bearish thing. We're seeing a sell the news on the good news. The market tops on good news. It bottoms on bad news. We're going to see Bitcoin get a rebound in all likelihood. The market play catch up with Bitcoin. NVIDIA play back catch up with Bitcoin. NASDAQ then see a much, much bigger sell-off with Bitcoin and a much bigger sell-off with the market. But I think NVIDIA is going to tank, and I think that's going to tank the whole market here. I think we'll get a rebound. Hopes of the cut, but again, if you look at history, when the Fed does that, it's a bearish event. We're also going to be a lot of news about the banks here, counting earnings, and the herd believes the banking crisis is over. It's not. You're going to have the commercial real estate, the problems in the real estate, commercial real estate sector spill over into the banks, and you will see a banking crisis and more bank failures. It's going to be the next crisis that happens. Very good chance the market is peaking if we're going to get a cut in September. The market will peak with the Fed or ahead of the Fed and usher in the bear market because the Fed's cutting because recession is coming. The herd says, oh, there's no recession. We're going to get a soft landing. I say that every time. Fed's policies lead to negative outcomes, period. Warned you, the 9 counts. We had the 9 count on NASDAQ yesterday. We had the 9 count on the S&P the day before that. I told you, again, those 9 counts are likely going to produce a reversal. P still might form a divergence on the 60-minute chart, but NASDAQ has probably peaked. Sold off 2.5% at the lows of the session. It was down over 500 points. P was down just over 1% at the lows or so. Now we saw it initially try to go higher, and then it turned and we started going down, and we saw a sell-off throughout the session. I was watching to see if we would recover and get like a hanging man, some kind of rebound with the daily candlestick. Didn't happen. We came down and then we consolidated down under the 200 period. Now you have a possible inverse head and shoulders on the 5-minute chart. Maybe a 3 drives to a low if we go down one more time. We'll be watching. You got the divergence here. The divergences here. They only gave us a bounce here and a bounce here so far. Can we get a higher low? In order to do that, you got to break above the neckline on the S&P, clear the 200, and you can start getting a Fibonacci retracement or go to challenge this high. I still think that's possible. But again, I think NASDAQ has probably peaked, S&P maybe, but sometimes they diverge at turning points. So we'll see what happens. You have the diversions here, give us a bounce. If we get a 3 drives to low, we'll see this roll over and form another reference point of a divergence. If we can establish a higher low, we can get it back above the 200, then maybe you've got the shot at the inverse head and shoulders setting up. We'll see which way it plays out, but we've been expecting this. If we attempt some kind of rebound, and again, lows of the session, we had wiped out 2 days worth of gains on the NASDAQ. We wiped out 3 days worth of gains. Boom, just like that. We'll see if we can recover here or not. We'll be watching this closely, but again, just sell, 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 sell. Distribution taking place. As I've been warning, again, we rose on very, very light volume up, and now we're starting to see selling pressure. It's happening fast. Again, we could still rebound. No guarantee we rebound, but you got a possible inverse head and shoulders. You got to be able to get back above the 200. NASDAQ ended down 2.24%, down 2.25%, down 464 points. It was down over 500 at the lows. Same thing here. Again, we had the sell-off. It tanked. NASDAQ tanked. Again, it's now moving. Remember, NASDAQ moved to a new high. NVIDIA did not. We wiped out 3 days of gains in just a very short amount of time here. We got, again, a possible inverse head and shoulders pattern here. Maybe it's a 3 drives to low. If we got to go lower, MACD's rolling over here on these 5-minute charts. We'll see what happens. We'll see what futures does overnight and how we open tomorrow with the PPI data. But again, you sell off on one and rally on the other and vice versa. What happens here, you got a possible right shoulder that's under construction on the 5-minute chart. The 200 period way up here. I've got the Fibonacci retracements here And again, the 78.6 Fibonacci would be somewhere up in here if we hit that. So we'll be watching to see if we get an attempted recovery. I warned you, NASDAQ is getting all kinds of sell signals that this was going to happen. It did. Warning you about these negative divergences. Now, again, we had a really nice looking negative divergence here, triple negative divergence on the NASDAQ. We got a divergence right here, and then we got another one here, and I talked about that in Wednesday's update. Again, this is now played out. We went a little bit higher, and then we began to turn. We took out the 50 period on the 60-minute chart. Again, it's very possible that we attempt to get some kind of rally surrounding the 50 period. No guarantee, but again, if we do attempt a recovery, the inverse head and shoulder patterns play out on the 5-minute chart. No guarantee they do. We're below the 200. We could just keep dropping. A follow through to this move, or a confirmation of it, I should say, a confirmation to this reversal. No guarantee we rebound back up, okay? If we do, here's some Fibonacci's. We may just get a follow through and just keep going down to this trend line down over here towards our 200 period moving average on the 60-minute chart and get a confirmation of this sell-off. Should we attempt to rebound right here without going to deeper extremes, but should we attempt to rebound right here, we might establish a confirmation of a lower high on NASDAQ and maybe a divergence on the S&P 500. Sometimes they diverge at turning points. We'll see what happens. Right now, they've recently both have made new highs, and at turning points, tops and bottoms, short-term tops and bottoms, they do diverge from one another. So we'll be watching. Can we get a rebound here, or do we just sink down to the trend line towards the 200 period? We'll see what happens. 60-minute chart here, but I've been warning you. Oh no, this time's different. AI people keep saying this. Oh no, AI, it's changing the world. What they said with the dot-com stocks and the internet and all the tech stocks back in 2000, it didn't stop the bear market from happening. These AI junkies out there that think that it's AI, it's going to be different this time. It's not going to prevent the bear market from happening. Actually, AI will likely lead the charge lower. NVDA will probably drag the whole market down with it. There's going to be competition for NVIDIA, going to eventually drag it down. Same thing back in 2000 with other Wall Street darlings, Intel, Cisco, Amazon. I mean, the list goes on and on. JDS Uniphase, they all crashed. They were the Wall Street darlings back in 2000. Didn't stop the bear market from happening because they were the Wall Street darlings. They crashed even harder than the other stocks. The dot-com stocks did not survive. Amazon did. Now, well, the NASDAQ was down 2.25%, down 464 points lower, over 500 points at the lows of the session. S&P was down 0.88%. It was down over 1% at the lows of the session, heading back towards its 50. It still may go there before all is said and done. We may see something like this, okay, if it can't make new highs. Or, again, it may attempt it right here, right now, possibly, if we try to form a divergence. It may be we have to go lower, and then we still try to get a lower high or a divergence. No guarantee. Listen carefully. There's no guarantee we go above that high. That may be it. The divergence here, and we had a Class B divergence where you had really almost these two equal peaks right here, and gave us this sell-off that we were told was never, ever, ever going to happen. And yet it now is. The herd was so complacent that the institutions are selling the tech stocks into the rally. If they push it down and confirm this sell-off today or get a rebound first, we'll see what happens. We're moving into earnings. We've got the blackout season for the buyback, so that's going to put some pressure as well for right now, the moment, on stocks. Again, I've been warning you about this divergence on the MACD right here. It did now play out. There's possible larger head and shoulders if we have peaked, or if we go up one more time and peak, or if we sell off to the 50 period in the cloud and then a rebound to get a lower high. We'll be watching to see how it unfolds. Got a possible neckline around the 54.50 area. Again, that's a smaller version here on the 60-minute chart. 10 years breaking down today, down 2%, down about 2.5% at the lows. Again, the market is eventually going to have a positive correlation with the 10-year yield. The 10-year yield has been declining, and we've seen this recent rally. We've seen the stock market go higher, but yields have been down. And again, even recently, had a short-term negative correlation. You have the yield down and you have stocks down. It's eventually going to go back to a positive correlation as it's going to fall with the Fed eventually get the uninversion of the yield curve. It's inverted right now, and when that happens, the recession will be right at our door. Eventually, the S&P is going to have a positive longer-term correlation with this. It's had a negative correlation. Rates are going to be coming down and breaking the trend line here as we have the cool inflation down. The divergence on the MACD here on the 60-minute chart, and I've been talking about again, and you had this almost Class B divergence here, but you could still get a divergence in the most recent price action. Just want to show you the channel I've been talking about. Again, now we're going up and hitting it. And again, the divergence on the MACD may be it. We don't have to form one here on the RSI, so let me be clear about that. That may be it. And it may be that we have to confirm the candlestick we got today, which was a bearish red wide range bar. We get a confirmation that we may go down to the 50 in the cloud before we get any kind of bounce. So again, it may be that the top is in, possibly on the S&P, probably on the NASDAQ. But the divergence here playing out on the MACD. Nice looking channel. I've talked about these channels. I had a couple of ones we overthrew the other trend line, and I told you this trend line now comes into play. Here we are at it, and we're turning down. You got a really nice looking channel here. Talking about these channels for a long time on the S&P. In this consolidation, I talked about going up to the channel and the blue channel, which we already overthrew, so I deleted that. It's just this red channel now in play. We'll see if we try to go up and hit the upper channel line again or not, and form a divergence between the S&P and NASDAQ, or if we go lower and make some kind of attempted rebound and maybe get lower highs. We'll be watching how it unfolds. Again, I warned you there was a divergence in yesterday's video, and we saw that begin to play out immediately and retreated as tech stocks began to tank and NVDA driving AI stocks lower. Nice looking channel here. Again, if we've topped now, if we get confirmation and a fall through on the daily candlestick, or if we have more work to be done here, if we do, then we can still see a divergence between NASDAQ and S&P. But I told you they're going to follow Bitcoin down. Bitcoin is probably going to put a short-term bottom. It's carving out a bottom right now. Bullish divergences on Bitcoin, negative divergences on the S&P and NASDAQ. Again, stock traders are going to get a rude awakening because cryptocurrency traders already got it. Bitcoin already dropped 27.5%. It'll probably rebound. It's probably topped. The divergence between Bitcoin and the stock market, the S&P 500, are warning the S&P is likely topping. Know that the Fed is going to pivot. So again, another warning sign. People do not believe that. Most people believe that, oh, no, we're going to have the soft landing. Pivot, that's going to be putting us into a bull market to 2027. It's a bunch of poppycock. Fed cutting rates creates market tops, recessions follow, cut because the economy is slowing. Their policies lead to negative outcomes. People believe this stuff that, oh, no, this time's different. We're going to have a soft landing on Fed. They say that every single recession, and it never happens. A bunch of Kool-Aid for the Kool-Aid drinkers. Look, I told you I thought we'd go higher, but I think we're topping. Weekly chart, I thought we'd go higher to form the divergence. The divergence likely finishing in the weekly time frame. So we'll be watching here. Again, we could go lower. Momentum continues lower before we get any kind of rebound. The rebound may only give us a lower high. It is possible we now have a top. See how it unfolds. Right, the sell-off, the VIX got above the 50 and it closed right at it there, just slightly above it, but the VIX was only up 0.5%. So again, we'll need to see a bigger move above 50 here and a bigger surge on the VIX if we're going to get a bigger sell-off on the S&P 500. When the VIX is above 50, the 50-period moving average, bad things happen on the S&P 500. I talked about the divergence where the S&P has moved to a higher high. We're through that trend line right there slightly. The VIX has not moved to a lower low. The discrepancy between the two, warning something was getting ready to happen. Warning you about the divergence on NASDAQ with spring parameter. It played out now. It rolled over. Major sell signal now. Maybe we get a bounce, maybe we don't. We're coming down to the 50 in the cloud here. We'll see what happens. We may get a follow through, but right now we're hitting some support in the daily time frame, which I'll show you in a moment. About the divergence with momentum, it rolled over, completed the divergence, and we got this sell off, and we've dropped 2.5% and 500 points. Getting out 3 days of gains like that in just a few hours. Told us that wasn't going to happen. It happened. And if we include the shadow over here, we've hit the trend line for the channel. Told you if we excluded it, may go a little higher. Again, a nice looking channel here. The divergence is playing out with momentum. NASDAQ 60-minute chart. Divergence gave us the sell-off on the 60-minute chart with the RSI here. Again, very good chance NASDAQ has now peaked. S&P may have. Sometimes they do diverge at turning points. Again, we'll see if we get a follow through tomorrow. If we attempt a recovery, could play out either way. Again, MACD had the divergence. It's now going negative. We'll see if we attempt a rebound or not off the cloud and the 50, or do we just bust on down towards the trend line and the 200 here on NASDAQ. But again, this happened. We were told it wasn't going to happen, but yet it happened. Had the 9 count yesterday on the NASDAQ. Everybody was so complacent, dropped 500 points right after that. MACD did not roll over. It has a negative divergence, but we came down. I have a trend line here excluding the shadow and hitting that low. If we include the shadow here, maybe we go a little lower in attempt to recovery. Maybe we just break this area and get a confirmation to this reversal bar right here. This is a one black crow pattern. And again, we don't have to go up and see the S&P go higher. We do have a small little divergence that took place. We opened lower and sold off on NASDAQ. S&P opened higher and went a little higher and then sold off. So there is a little tiny divergence there, a little hard to see intraday charts, but you can see it on the daily charts here. So again, this rising wedge, again, NASDAQ turning off of the upper Bollinger Band, getting that 9 count. The Dow has a double top pattern. We have a bear flag pattern. The Dow was up today. Again, camouflaging what's going on. You got the tech stocks selling off with NASDAQ and S&P, and the Dow's, the Dow's up. The Dow's up. Illusion. We'll have this bear flag and a double top. The Dow is not making new highs. NASDAQ did. Huge warning sign. And MACD has not rolled over here. We'll see if it does. S&P has a trend line. We may drop down and get confirmation before we get any kind of rebound back up. Again, we had a rally yesterday, gave it all back and then some today. And we're likely headed down to 4,900. NASDAQ's likely headed down to 17,000. Eventually, we're going to see this move happen. It's probably going to be pretty ugly, and it's going to be a summer sell-off. And then, again, you're probably going to get that rate cut in September. So the market is in a topping process. As it doesn't play out immediately, people get extremely complacent. I said the market was going to go higher, form those divergences. Weekly chart. That's now happened, and they're now beginning to play out. Yesterday, I warned you about the sell signals that were forming on the NASDAQ. Got more sell signals today. This little orange circle above NASDAQ is saying it's a one-day reversal bar. Now, this is the bars reflecting momentum, and it hasn't turned red yet, and the momentum line didn't turn red yet. A little hard to see there, but it's not red yet. But you've got the divergence down here, which I've been talking about on indicators like the MACD and here with momentum, and it's all over the place. But just as we had the warning signals over here of some kind of sell-off, we had a sideways pullback here, kind of a back, and then a kind of a sideways move. We went higher, bars turned back to green, momentum line turned back to green, and now we're getting more right here. It's just showing that, again, distribution is starting to take place here. And we get this 500-point drop on the NASDAQ down 2.5%, and then rebounding off of the lows. We'll see if the momentum line turns bearish on Friday or on early next week, on Monday or Tuesday. Chance it's going to turn bearish here. We'll see if we rebound or not. The trend is still in play. The momentum hasn't turned, but we have the warning signs. Do you see this? I talked about it yesterday, talking about it again today. It's warning we're going to get a turn now. Momentum line is going to validate that when it starts going red. NASDAQ has dropped below the momentum line. It's probably going to turn red. S&P is not below it. It's still above it. It's still blue. But again, we got a sell signal. With today's downturn, it's triggering a sell signal for the previous bar. Got another low X means we have a possible top here. Still forming divergence on the 60-minute chart, but you do have a possible top that's in. There's no guarantee we go to a new high. Bars are still green. We'll see if the bars start turning red, if the momentum lines start turning red Friday or early next week. We're in earnings. We'll see what happens. We'll see if we get confirmation to these red bars we had today on the daily charts tomorrow and confirmation of fall through, or do we rebound first? We'll see what happens. And we've got the divergences everywhere. And again, momentum has been forming these divergences. Likely going to see the momentum line, momentum signals begin to change with the bars. Trend signal shortly after that. We've got these divergences all over the place. Here it is with S&P. Again, momentum still hanging in there on the S&P. Trend still hanging in there, but we're now starting to see the divergences begin to play out. And right here on the NASDAQ, same thing. Again, this is what I've been warning you about. I've been warning you about the divergences, and I've been warning you about the on lighter volume. And again, I said that earlier, that we took out 3 days worth of gains. I stand corrected. 4 days worth of gains wiped out in just a few hours on the NASDAQ. This is just getting started. We're coming back to 17,000 eventually. NASDAQ has probably peaked.